welcome back to another episode of Automate or Not. We're excited to be here yet again. I'm Michael with my co-host Yossi in the house.
Hello.
Yeah, so today's episode we're going to be doing two things. We're going to be reading, first of all, some more fantastic listener support that we've gotten in regards to our last week's episode about grocery shopping.
Yeah.
And it's actually funny when you read it, Yossi. It's actually the same feedback that I told you after we finished recording last week's episode. I thought of another point and I came to, and I said the exact points that we actually ended up getting. So they're fantastic points.
Great minds
think
alike. Yeah.
And the second thing that we're going to be doing after that, and that's going to be the bulk of the episode, is a clarification that is regarding all of the show and the general premise of what we want to be talking about. So, Yossi, do you want to start with the feedback?
Sure. Let's do it.
Groceries. Maybe just give a quick reminder about what we were talking about last week so that this feedback will make a little more sense.
So our topic last week was about grocery shopping, and we were talking about should we automate it or not. We were both said that we clearly, for automating your grocery shopping, which usually means that you make some kind of a list and you go through that before you go out and while you're doing it. So we're not going to get into details, but that's the main idea.
Right.
And we got our devout listener that wrote back to us. Okay, I have one more pro and one more con for automating your grocery shopping. Pro, it helps stop you from buying things impulsively, which will probably save you money. Con, conversely, it stops you from buying things spontaneously that would add more variety and creativity to the food you have in your home. And that's I think that's those two are great pros and cons. And both of them are like quite legit.
Yeah, and I love that she used the same point for the pro and the con. I'm generally a big fan of that, where the same exact thing is the downside and the plus side. It's the same thing. And in this case, she's talking about buying things that you didn't intend. There's a good part about that, and there's a negative part about that. But yeah, I think we completely agree that those are pros and cons that we could have mentioned, and I actually thought of them later on, at least one of them, one side of it.
The con,
I think it was the con.
Yeah,
I didn't think
it's
it was
a good con.
But
even though I had something to say about the con is that you can add a spontaneous section to your shopping list. So you can actually add another box, which you can write spontaneous shopping, which is just walk around and buy one or two items. That's kind of an idea.
But I hear that, and it would probably mitigate part of the issue, but I think you would have to agree that it wouldn't be as spontaneous as coming to the store without a list at all. So
I definitely agree.
So to the next part, thank you for that feedback. We always love getting...
We appreciate it.
We do appreciate it. And so one thing we wanted to clarify, and this is a general theme, is that a lot of the feedback we're getting and just confusion from our massive audience is that people are getting caught up on the specific examples of automation that we're giving. So we'll say, for example, when we shop for groceries, we do X, Y, and Z, or when we do our food thing, we'll do X, Y, and Z. And people get caught up in that specific example, but really what we want to be talking about and what we think is more interesting is the general idea of automation, and it doesn't have to look a certain way. So someone else might automate it a different way, but we could still talk about whether automation as a general category for that thing would be appropriate. So, yeah.
If I understand you right, you mean that we give examples in our episodes, and sometimes people think, but they go into details about what's the problem with this specific example, with the system that we created for ourselves,
right,
or just in general. But the idea here is just the system itself, that what we created does not necessarily matters, and you found your system. It's even better probably because it's going to be custom for you and your needs. But I just again, just was like you said, is that the idea matters more than the actual system of implementation.
Absolutely, and I think that a separate interesting conversation could be had about which system would be better. So you could have a whole long conversation about
which would be very interesting.
It could be very interesting. But I think for the purpose of this little show,
Yeah.
We're trying to focus away from that discussion about which system is the best, and more towards, like we both just said, whether automation as a general idea would apply well for food or for groceries or for et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah, the main idea, I would add more to it. So the main idea is to just find, is it good that for the topic that we bring up usually in those episodes, is it good to even thinking about automated, or it's not a good area or topic to automate. It's just some of them are not good and some of them are better to automate.
right. I just thought of an example to kind of bring this out is like, imagine we're trying to have a conversation about whether it's a good idea to exercise in the morning for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
But people keep getting caught up in the specific exercise that we're talking about. So we'll talk about running and they're like, oh, running. But really the idea is exercise as a category. And so that's a similar thing, is we're trying to pull out of the specific example more towards the generic idea of, in this case, automation. Or in the case of exercise, if we're talking about just physical activity of any sort.
Yeah.
So
yeah, even if you want to add another example, even that grocery shopping, which is the last episode. So again, if you focus on the system that we created, and when you go through the list, or what you add to the list, those specific details does not necessarily matter.
For the purpose of this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. So you do whatever you want to do, and you might find even a better or worse system of implementation. But again, the idea is to just, should you try at least to create some kind of a system to automate or not? That's the
right. And I'm glad you brought an example from this groceries episode, because it reminded me of an example from the food episode, where some of the feedback we got from another one of our devout listeners is that you can't cook, for instance, good food if you're automating it. And I think she was going off of the fact that we described that we cook these massive batches of food and put them in containers. So yeah, it doesn't sound maybe so appealing to some people. But that's another example of getting caught up on our specific example, whereas automation in food could look very differently. It could look completely differently. We decide to do it the way we're doing it, and there can be issues with that. But food automation is much bigger than that. So
and there's many more ways
exactly, which would solve a lot of the problems that are coming up. So we thought we'd devote a whole section to that, because it felt important for the premise of the show. And thank you for sending in your thoughts. We muchly appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you again for great comments.
Amazing
for
stuff.
Being devout listeners.
This whole process has been truly life-changing.
Yes.
It's never thought it would take off this way.
Our life completely changed.
You don't see it coming.
All right, thank you.